What is that? Setback. If you have recently suffered a setback, I'm telling you to get back on your feet right now. You are not alone. There will always be challenges. As an entrepreneur, you are going to face setbacks. Hey, even life has its fair share of setbacks. Setbacks for entrepreneurs often come thick and fast, and you can feel so overwhelmed. I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely part of the game. Even if you end up going out of business, that too is part of the game. Actually, most startups go out of business than succeed. Most successful entrepreneurs did not succeed at the first time. Never be ashamed of failure or setbacks. Don't get depressed. When it happens, take a deep breath. Take time out. Learn more lessons from it. Accept at least the humility that it brings. And then start again. This time you will succeed. Everything turns on this. Use the setback to reset yourself and propel yourself to the next level. I have always used these stumbling blocks to reset myself and then to move onward and upward on the next level. Sometimes the setbacks are completely outside your own control. It might be a natural disaster, an outbreak of war, a new law in Africa. The list can be almost endless. But as an entrepreneur, I taught you early on a powerful principle. We fight in the conditions and not the conditions. One thing you must never do is sit around and feel sorry for yourself, or even become bitter towards other people, including public officials. Sometimes you may need to move away for a while, but don't lose hope. During the 5 years I was fighting a court battle to get a license in Zimbabwe, I lost everything, including my car and my house, to creditors. My construction equipment was sold off at a public auction as newspapers perished and jeered. At the same time, I started mobile telecommunications until I became known throughout the world as a leading African expert in the field. I realized that I would need to diversify my risk by developing a skill to operate in other countries. In 1997, I successfully bid for a license to operate in Botswana. Mascom Botswana, not Econet Zimbabwe, was my first mobile operation. When I was forced to leave Zimbabwe, it was a massive setback, but it accelerated my own development as an entrepreneur. I was no longer afraid to go and work far from home. Nigeria, New Zealand, Latin America. I started a business in the UK, all from nothing. When I was kicked out of Nigeria, it was a massive setback, but in my reset, I turned my attention to the next big thing in communications, data infrastructure, much earlier than I would ever have done. It is hard to feel you can reset yourself after you have had a major setback. I am here to tell you that you can do it. Nothing turns on it. Every sunset is an opportunity for reset. Richie Norton, entrepreneur. What defines us is how well we rise after falling. Anyone can call out a problem, but to be an entrepreneur, you must be ready to take it on. In Africa, we are very good at observing and calling out problems, but very few of us are willing to say to ourselves, I'm going to try and find a sustainable solution to this problem. Often we want to wait until someone from outside Africa comes to validate our observations with sympathy or action of their own. It does not have to be like that. If you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, identify a human need and reach out to meet that need using knowledge and sustainable solutions that don't harm the environment or create injustice or harm others or steal from the national purse. Be ready to dedicate your life to solving problems entrepreneurially. It's not about doing some project that puts money in your pockets quick. Any fool can do that, but entrepreneurs are better than that. We play team sports at school. 1. To instill the importance of teamwork to get a result. 2. To instill the importance of competitiveness in life. 3. To instill the importance of fair play in life. At school, I played 2 team sports, rugby and cricket. I was also a member of the track team. Now, almost 45 years ago, I remember my head teacher saying to us after a game, "After losing to the better team, show them respect by lining up to clap for them. Never cheat to win a game. Don't hate your opponent because without them, there is no game. And you need to test yourself against the best teams. You need those teams because they are the ones who tell us how good you are." Are these really not life principles? Who are your own competitors? What do you think of them? Don't be a dirty player as an entrepreneur. We have come a long way, but the road ahead is still long. I once took a business delegation to see a senior government minister in a leading African country. I did most of the talking about our investment proposal. The minister listened politely, and at the end of the meeting, he asked one of our people to see him on his own. He was the only white member, and the minister had concluded he was the chairman of the company. How do you think I responded? I am an entrepreneur. The answer to the question about a minister. Until very recently, the idea of black-owned businesses that were big enough to operate beyond the borders of the founder's home country was extremely rare. So, for those of us who pioneered the development of cross-border African-owned businesses, it was not unusual for people to assume that any successful business had to be owned by our white colleagues. In the case of that minister, I did not take offense or even assume that he wanted something more. My white colleague agreed to remain behind as requested, and the rest of us left. The meeting that followed, the white colleague, who was Swedish, told the minister that I was indeed the chairman and the founder. The minister apologized, and I took him I was not offended by a mistake that happened often. Nothing turns on this. How do you value a business? As an entrepreneur, when you get to the place when this question comes up, you have reached a very exciting stage in your development. For now, I'm just putting it out there. When you get there, you will know. Reflection. Setbacks to make you cry. A big international accounting company was appointed by a government to prioritize its telephone company. They advertised the bid in newspapers around the world. We submitted our bid, and gradually over the months, we emerged as the best big by far. Our team was made up of staff from London and South Africa. We were recommended to the government of the country, which was not Africa. I was asked to travel to the country and meet with the government. They were totally discomforted when they realized I was black and the largest shareholder. Eventually, the minister, who was a wonderful Christian, came to me at the hotel. "Please, brother, do not be offended. Our people are just not ready at this time to tell the nation that the government is selling its telephone company to a black man from Africa. Your bid was the best in every way possible." I agreed to withdraw, and they repaid us the cost of our bidding process. I never told my team or talked about it. I sat in my hotel room and just wept before God. And believe me, this is not the worst situation concerning my race or my nationality that I ever had to endure. We have come a long way, but the road ahead is long yet. Reflection. Here is how we deal with setbacks. When they go low, we go high. Michelle Obama. When the government of New Zealand published the list of bidders for its third cell phone license, it included Econet from Zimbabwe. There was one racist newspaper article which jeered, "Let's get serious please, what can come from Africa?" That comment filled me with total determination to win. We won. After we won, every single bank we approached turned us down for financing. I had to go to America, and those who funded me were white investors. The week we arrived in New Zealand was also the week the government of Zimbabwe arrested the entire local management of our local company there. They kept them at the top security prison for 16 days. They brought them in leg irons to the court, then dropped the charges. In all those 16 days, I did not eat any solid food, just fasted and drank orange juice, and worked on the bidding in the New Zealand by day and with our Zimbabwean lawyers by night. When I arrived in Nigeria for the beginning of the auction for licenses, a newspaper wrote, "There is also a company which started in Zimbabwe, a country in complete turmoil. They are not serious." That night in a dream, the Lord showed me holding the license. I kept my peace and went to the auction to correct the license the Lord had already given me. I used to whistle at such times a gospel song. Whose report will you believe? We shall believe the report of the Lord. Setbacks come in many disguises, including prejudices or being despised for your race, gender, religions, nationality, disability, lack of education, or being seen as poor. There is nothing that can stop the person who has determined they will succeed despite the conditions imposed on them. We don't fight the conditions, we fight in and despite the conditions. Without faith, you cannot deal with real setbacks. When we were preparing to bid for a license in Nigeria, we tried to raise money in South Africa. One of the largest South Africa institutional investors agreed to invest $60 million to support our bid. It was a lot of money in those days. As I was at the airport preparing to leave for Lagos, the chair of that investor called me to say they had withdrawn their bid because there was a South African company also bidding, and they did not want to limit its chances by also backing our bid. They were using armory. On the plane, I read the story of Gideon's battle against a much larger army. With the Lord, we can win with a few against the many. I declared, we won the bid. We won the bid and became the first mobile operator in Nigeria. Reflection. 3 men in a room. 3 men were relaxing in a room one evening, when there was a distinct crackling sound in the distance. The first to react said, "It's just children playing with fireworks." The second said, "It's the exhaust of a car." The third said, "That is the sound of an AK-47 rifle," and stood to leave. Don't be so alarmist. Just because you are a former soldier does not mean you have to hear a gun in every sound. The second man agreed and urged the former soldier not to be alarmed. But the former soldier bid his leave and rushed home. Half an hour later, armed bandits arrived on the 2 unsuspecting men who had remained. When experts speak, we must listen